Good morning, children, and I hope that you all are fit and fine, feeling happy and healthy. Welcome back in your civics class. And from children, now I'm going to teach you history and civics to you all, and I hope that in the last previous session, in the last previous lecture, Anurika Miss has completed the chapter that is the federalism. So you have all completed the lectures, you have all completed the chapter federalism. So I also hope that you got the PDF, the questions of that chapter also. So in today's lecture, children, we are going to start the new chapter from your civics portion, that is the democracy and diversity. This is your next chapter. This is your new chapter from the civics portion, that is the democracy and diversity. So children, let's start the discussion of democracy and diversity from the civics portion. Children, in last chapter we have studied that how power can be distributed to accommodate linguistic and regional diversities. But language and regions are not only necessary, are not only essential for the social division, for the differences, because social differences are not only the features that give a distinct identities to the people, but people differentiate. But sometimes people differentiate themselves. Sometimes people identify themselves on the basis of religion, on the basis of physical appearance, on the basis of caste, on the basis of gender, on the basis of tribe, etc. So in this chapter we are going to study how democracy responds to social diversities, and what were the forms of social diversities and social divisions, and how the democratic politics affects and is affected by social division and social diversities. So all these topics we will discuss in this chapter one by one. So let's start the chapter, the first from your civics portion, that is the democracy and diversities. Children, to understand the concept of differences, similarities and divisions, let's take an example of an incident occurred in Mexico Olympic in 1968 when two athletes the name was Tommy Smith and John Carlos. The two athletes who were Afro-American, they belonged to Afro-American and they were blacks. So two athletes were standing in the Olympics held in Mexico in 1968, and the US national anthem was going on, and both athletes bowed and they stood straight and they bowed to show the respect to the national anthem of US. And both the athletes won the medal respectively, bronze and gold, and both wear socks, but both wear without shoes, but had black socks, which symbolizes the blacks were poor, which shows to represent they had no shoes. Without shoes they were standing, and they were going to start they were standing and they got the medal, gold and bronze respectively, but they stood without shoes and they had only socks to represent black poverty, to show that blacks were poor. So with this gesture, with this position, they tried to draw international attention to racial discrimination in the United States. They were against the racial discrimination which they were facing. They were against the social differences They were against the social differences. What social differences they were facing? They were facing the racial discrimination. There was a discrimination between black and white, and they were blacks. So they were facing trouble. They were facing they were struggling. They were struggling to stand on it. They were struggling for their existence. They were against the racial discrimination, and with this gesture, they tried to attract the attention, international attention towards racial discrimination in United States. And the black gloved, and they had black gloves also, and that black gloves shows the black power. Without shoes, they were standing without shoes. It represents the black poverty. But they had black gloves. So what they tried to show? They tried to show that black was also powerful. Black power they represented in that Olympic competition held in Mexico in 1968. Now there was another athlete named Peter Norman, who was an Australian athlete, and his name was Peter Norman. He was not black, he was white, and but he came forward to support them against the racial discrimination, and he supported them against the racial discrimination against this social division. He also came forward to support them, and he won silver medal in that Olympic competition. That Olympic, he won the silver medal. Peter Norman, an Australian athlete. Now, do you think, children, that Carlos and Smith's this gesture of these two athletes? What do you mean? What do you derive? What do you think that Carlos and Smith should have raised an internal matter of African society in such big international conference, in such big international forum? So what do you think that Peter Norman, who was not a black, but he, in spite of being white, he supported them? What is the reason behind it? What was the reason behind his support to the Afro-American athletes? What was the reason behind it? Do you think this? What do you think about these circumstances, these activities, these gestures of these athletes? Now I think the answer. Maybe the answer is, and the answer is not maybe, but sure, the answer is that all the three athletes only wanted to show, only wanted to draw an attention towards the social differences, towards the social division of racial discrimination of the people in the United States in that incident, in that event. So what was the result? Result was that the Olympic Association found Smith and Carlos guilty, and their for guilty, and then what happened? Their medals were taken back, and Peter Norman also found he also suffered a lot for supporting them, and he was not included in the Australian team for the next Olympic Games. So, but children, their efforts, their action succeeded in bringing international attention towards the social differences which they were facing, which two athletes were facing, and they were struggling for their existence against the racial discrimination. So, children, this is an example of social division, of social differences. This is the only example to make you clear what is the effect of social division, what is the effects of social differences. Sometimes people differentiate themselves on the basis of physical appearance, on the basis of complexion, on the basis of gender, on the basis of tribe, on the basis of religion. only regional differences, only language differences are not responsible for social division. All these points, all these regions were also responsible for social division, social differences. So children, we have in previous chapter, we have also seen in the chapter power sharing, when we were studying about the case of Belgium and Sri Lanka. We have noted the similarities and differences in inequalities in Belgium and Sri Lanka also. In Belgium, we found what we noted. In Belgium, we noted the social and regional differences. People belonging to different regions and different languages live in different places. But Belgium found a compromise way to tackle the problems, to tackle the problems, and the Belgium handled the problems in a different way. But in Sri Lanka, the people lived in Sri Lanka also belonged to different regions and different languages like Sinhalese and Tamils. But in Sri Lanka, what condition arose? The condition of civil war began in Sri Lanka due to these differences, due to these social divisions. So we have already we have seen in that chapter about the social inequalities, social differences occurred in Belgium and Sri Lanka. We have already discussed about the case of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Now children, origin of social differences. What were the origins of social differences? How these social differences originate? From where these differences originate? From where these differences come? And how they originate? How they come into existence? How they came into existence and how they are coming into existence? So children, these social differences, the social differences are mostly based on the rebirth. We are based on accident of birth. जैसे हम जिस समुदाय में, जिस कम्युनिटी में हम जन्म लेते हैं, हम उसी कम्युनिटी को, उसी परिवार को, उसी फैमिली को, उसी ट्राइब, उसी रिलीजन को हम जो है वो फॉलो करते हैं, उससे बिलोंग करते हैं. So normally we don't choose to belong. Normally we don't choose to belong to our community, and we belong to it simply because we are born into it. क्योंकि हमने उस कम्युनिटी, उस समुदाय में जन्म लिया है, इसलिए हम उस समुदाय को बिलोंग करते हैं. We all experience this type of social differences based on rebirth in everyday lives. We usually experience, हम अपने दैनिक जीवन में इस तरह के डिफरेंसेस को एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं कि जिस कम्युनिटी, जिस समुदाय में हम जन्म लेते हैं, हमारा बर्थ होता है, हम उसी कम्युनिटी को बिलोंग करते हैं. So we don't have any option to choose any community. We don't have any way. We don't have any option to choose any other community, any other tribe, because we generally belong to one tribe on which we are born into it. So people around us in that community where in which we are born into it, people around us are female, male, tall, short, black, white, of any complexion, of any group. We don't bother about it, because those people are in my community and I am in their community. But this is the first region. This is the first region from region of origin of social differences. This is the first region. In the region, the social difference is based on the accident of birth. The second region is that but all kinds of social differences are not necessary to based on our choice, on our rebirth only. Some of the differences are also based on our choices. हमारी पसंद या चुनाव पर भी तो हमारे डिफरेंसेस जो है वो बेस्ड होते हैं. हमारी जो सोशल डिफरेंसेस होते हैं वो बेस्ड होते हैं हमारी चॉइसेस पे भी. So for example, some people are atheist. They don't believe in God. Some people are atheists, they don't believe in God or any religion. Some people choose to follow any religion other than the one in which they are born. And most of us choose what to study, what to follow, what to do work, and what type of job we should do, what type of work we should do, what type of and where we should live, where we should study. We have our own choices. So it is not necessary that the social differences originate only on the basis of rebirth, on the accident of birth, but also it depends upon the choices also. Because sometime now we may select, we may choose our own job, what our parents want from us. We don't want that. We want only what we wanted, what we want to become. So choices are also the region of social differences. So all these led to formation of social groups that are based on our choices. Now children, but every social differences is not necessary that leads to social division. Sometimes the social differences may become a bridge to connect the people also. Because sometimes the people belong to different religion, different region, came forward for one region. Come forward to for one region. As I told you earlier about the athletes, two athletes, Norman and Carlos, both were Afro-American. They were against the racial discrimination, and they were showing their gesture in the Olympic Games held in Mexico in 1968. They were showing the gesture, they were showing the revolt against the racial discrimination. They were raising the voice and they were showing the gestures. But one athlete that Peter Normal, who was not a black, but he was an Australian athlete, and he was a white. But he came forward to support them. So here what we observe, the people belonged to different regions, but they came forward for one region. So sometimes the social differences may become a bridge to connect the people. So here the example of Norman and Carlos and Smith, you represent this fact that social differences, yes, social differences called social differences are responsible for social division. It is true, it is a fact, but sometimes the social differences also create a connection between people, among the people. So children, sometimes it is not necessary that social differences, yes, it is true that social differences cause social division among the people. But sometimes these social differences become the cause to connect the people, with each other. Here what we observe in the case of Norman and Carlos and Smith, both the athletes, the Afro-American athletes, Carlos and Smith, both were showing gestures against the racial discrimination, and both were standing in front of the people to draw the international attention against the racial discrimination. But what Peter did, what Norman did, he came forward to support those two athletes against the racial discrimination. Here what we observe in this case, children, we observe that people belong to different regions, people belong to different races, people belong to different tribes, but they came forward all together against one social difference, that is the racial discrimination. Sometimes the people got connected with each other to show their commonness. So children, it is fairly common for people belonging to same relation to feel that they do not belong to the same community because their caste or sect is very different. It is also possible for the people from different religion to have same caste or feel too close to each other. Sometimes we experience in our family also कि rich and poor rich and poor person from the same family often do not keep as close relation with each other. Why? Because they have their different opinions, they have different standard of living. One is rich and one is poor, but both belong to same family, both belong to same community, same family, but they have different standard of living, they have different way of thinking. So sometimes we all have more than one identity and can belong to more than one social group. But it is true that we have different identities in different preferences, in different contexts, in different forms. So children, this is the concept of social differences, origins of social differences. We will stop here, and in next lecture we will study our next topic from the same chapter. And please watch the video, and also after watching the video, please read the topic from your book also. So take care of yourself and your family. Goodbye.